Okay. Right now, I'm going to show you how to pick up the gusset stitches along a heel flap. So that makes it for a very secure, tight, strong heel flap. Here's an example where I've picked it up. See how it's very, very strong, kind of hidden. In my pattern, Leah's Vanilla Socks recipe, I have you pick up extra stitches compared to other heel flaps because I like to avoid, sometimes you'll end up with a little hole right here. So I pick up another stitch to avoid that ahead of time. So I've just finished my heel turn and I've knit across, I'm doing a 64 stitch sock. So I've knit across those last 12 stitches and now I'm going to start picking up the heel flap. So there's these. Here's my selvage edge. So all those lovely slip stitches that we did at the beginning of each round makes this nice and neat and easy to see. The first stitch I'm going to pick up. So this one that's on my needle is the last one I knit. The one below it is the one that I've knit into for the last stitch. I'm going to continue that down and actually go here. Sorry, my camera's shaking a little bit. I'm going to go here, right there, so that I'm under 3 strands of yarn. My next one, I'm going to keep going down, but I'm going to, I'm going to go behind that stitch back here. And there's another 3. And I really like to use the fabric of the sock itself to manipulate. Instead of using my needle to pull the thread through, I really manipulate my fabric. Retention. So now I have these lovely little V's that are kind of little indicators of exactly where I'm going to go. So I'm going to go under here and see how I'm under 3 strands. Here's the next one. The next one. And if you have a hard time with this, you can always use the handy tool or a small crochet hook. See, and I'm really using my left hand to manipulate. I like to use my middle finger on the end of the needle, and then I use my index and thumb to pull the fabric over and really get that stitch working for me. Oops, I split it a little bit, but that's okay. I can just back right up. And I'm not even going to count right now. I'm just going to focus on having nice clean pickups because I can count later. See, that's what happened the last one. See how I accidentally pulled that second strand of yarn through? Went through that one. And go through my next one. All the way down. And because I'm using a contrasting color for my heel flap, it's really easy to tell when I get close to where I'm done picking up stitches. And I do apologize for my audio. My microphone, I haven't used my microphone in quite some time, and I don't have the adapter necessary to plug it into this iPhone. So there's my last purple one, but this one right here will be one. I know I'm going to need to get that one, so I'm going to go in there. And I'm going to go back and count. Again, I am using a 64 stitch sock, which means I will have 12, having a little tiny trouble. I'm doing all of this behind my camera, so it's kind of interesting not actually seeing my hands. Right there. Perfect. So I'm going to come back to the beginning, and I should have 12 stitches on my heel flap. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now, for a 64 stitch sock and 16 repeats of the heel flap section, I know from many times experience that I'm going to have 19. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So I always like to count. So here's the extra stitch to prevent the holes. So I'm not going to go here and pick up a stitch because that's just going to create a hole. See, if I'm tugging on it, it's just going to create a hole. Here is good, but not great. I want to go right here. So kind of halfway the distance. And now I have picked up my whole heel flap. So there's my whole heel flap. Now, because I'm using contrasting yarn, I broke my original purple yarn, my contrast, and now I can pick up my new yarn that's the same color as my main color, the full body of my sock, and I'm going to knit across these 32 stitches. Once I knit across those 32 stitches, I'm going to, on this needle, pick up my heel flap on this side, doing the same thing, just in reverse. So here's that last slip stitch. So my first one is going to be in here. I like to call it the meat of my sock. See how I'm still 3 strands? So I get the meat of my sock, and then I would pick up 19 stitches total. So knowing that I had 32 first, then I know I need 19. So if you want to, you can place a marker here. So I'm going to end up having many more stitches on this needle than this needle. So then once I pick it up, my beginning of round is actually going to be right here at the right side of my heel flap. In the very first round, the next round, after we've done our pickup, I want to twist all these heel flap stitches. And to do that, we're going to knit into the back loop of them because it's going to twist them tighter. Because if not, when I'm wearing my sock, eventual wear and tear, it's going to pull on this seam and then it's going to start elongating those stitches. So I'm going to knit the first 12 like normal. The next 19, I'm going to knit through the back loop. When I get to the next needle, the first 32, I'm going to knit like normal, but the last 19, I'm going to knit through the back loop. Next come our decreases, which is a repeat of 2 different rounds. And again, the beginning of round is over here at the right side of our heel flap. I'm going to knit all the way down to the last 3 stitches, and I'm going to knit 2 together and knit 1. You can go ahead and put a stitch marker right here if you'd like to. I just know that when I get to the end of this needle, those last 3 are going to be knit 2 together, knit 1. It's easy for me to remember. But if you don't want to put a marker there, if you're noticing a little gap from it, because small yarn tends to show where you have your stitch markers, you can just clip a locking stitch marker right here to have that visual of, hey, there's something coming up. Then I'm going to knit 33 stitches. So I knit the first stitch of the heel flap, and then the decrease going this way is going to be a slip, slip, knit. And you can always put a marker after the 33 stitches and know that the first 2 stitches after that are going to be your decrease. However, if you have a hard time doing the slip, slip, knit is slipping 1 stitch as if to knit, slipping a second stitch as if to knit, and then knitting through the back loop, or knitting them. But if you just want to knit the 2 stitches through the back loop, you get the same kind of decrease. And people wonder why we're doing 2 different decreases. It has to do with the way it leans. So here's my seam from the gusset on this sock. And this side, this was the slip, slip, knit. And it leans it one way. And on this side was my knit 2 together. So it has to do with tucking your decreases under. If I did knit two togethers, then on the other side, it would look like the columns of our gusset here are coming up and over our seam instead of tucking under nicely. So as you go, so the first round is a decrease round. Then the second round, we just knit everything. And we're going to alternate those 2 rounds until we get back down to our original number of stitches. In my case, it's 64 stitches. Once I get to that number, then I'm going to rearrange my stitches again. And since I'm on flexi flips, I'm going to have 32 on the top and 32 on the bottom. And then I'm going to continue knitting either in pattern if you're using a texture or just stockinette, because this sock is just a vanilla. Then I'm going to start doing my toe decreases when my pattern stipulates. I hope this helps.